Open up your textbook to page 66. We're going to talk about square roots. A square root of a number is one of its two equal factors. And we have four really good examples to take a look at this page. The first problem that we have is the square root of 36. Square root of 36 is 6. It is the positive square root. For number 2, we're finding both the positive and the negative square root of 1.44. So if you put 1.44 into your calculator, you're going to get 1.2. Now because we have a positive and a negative sign in front of the square root sign, that means that we are being asked to list both the positive and the negative root. So remember that 1.2 negative times negative 1.2 will give us 1.44. A negative times a negative is a positive. So therefore there's always going to be two roots. Number 3 is finding the square root of a fraction. The first thing that we're going to do is rewrite the problem, taking the square root of the numerator and then taking the square root of the denominator. You'll notice that the problem is asking for the negative square root, so our answer is going to be negative 3 because 3 is the square root of 9, and 8 because 8 is the square root of 64. So negative 3/8 is our answer. The last problem shows us that we cannot find the square root of a negative number. The only way to get negative 16 is negative 4 times 4, and because those two factors are not equal, negative 16 has no solution. So you draw a circle with a line through it. Alright, let's practice. The first thing that we're going to do on A is that we're going to take the square root of 25 over the square root of 36. So the square root of 25 is 5 and the square root of 36 is 6, and so our answer is going to be 5/6. Take your calculator and find the square root of 0.49. The square root of 0.49 is going to be 0.7. But notice that they want the positive and the negative square roots, and so we put our positive and negative sign in front. C is asking for simply our negative root. So the square root of 81 is 9, so we're going to go and put our 9, but they want the negative root, so it's negative 9. The square root of negative 400 has no solution, and that is because the only way to get negative 400 is negative 20 times 20. Now let's come down and look at number 5. Number 5 says we need to solve for m, and m squared is equal to 196. So what we're going to do is solve for m. M is going to equal both the positive and the negative square root of 196. So m equals 14 and negative 14. So now we're going to do e. First of all, we have to get the variable on the left. So we're going to have a squared is equal to 169. Now we know that a is going to equal the positive and the negative square root of 169. So a is going to equal positive and negative 13. For f, x is already on the left. So we're going to write x is going to equal the positive and the negative square root of 0.04. So x is going to equal the positive and the negative the positive and negative root 0.2. Y is going to equal the positive and the negative square root of 9 divided by the square root of 49. So y is going to equal the positive and negative 3/7. Now we're going to look at cube root. Cube root is a number it's one of the three equal factors. So a cube root of a number is one of its three equal factors. So we're going to look at 8. 8 is the same as 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed. 27, 3 times 3 times 3, or 3 cubed. 64, 4 times 4 times 4, or 4 cubed. So when we find the cube root, we're going to use the cube root button on our calculator. And you're going to punch in the cube root of 125, and you're going to see that it's 5. And as a reminder and a check, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Now we're going to find the cube root of negative 27. Negative 27's cube root is negative 3. Notice that negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 is negative 27. Remember that we could not find the square root of negative 27. That was no solution because no two numbers multiply together to give us a negative 27. Now let's go ahead and find some more cube roots. On your calculator, you're going to do the cube root of 729, and you're going to get 9. And this number, or letter I, is the cube root of negative 64, which is going to be negative 4, and the cube root of 1,000, which is going to be 10. Now we're going to use this in order to answer a word problem. Dylan has a planter in the shape of a cube that holds 8 cubic feet of potting soil. What is the area of one of the sides of the planters? So remember that the cube has all sides that are equal. So if we can find two of the sides, we can find the area of that side. So we're going to take the cube root of 8, and that's going to give us 2. That means that the sides of the face of that cube are 2 by 2. So the area is equal to length times width. So the area is going to equal 2 times 2. So the area is going to be 4 feet squared. Now we have an aquarium. Again, it's a cube. So if we can find two of the three equal sides, then we can find the area of one side of the aquarium. So we know that the volume is equal to all three sides multiplied together. So it'd be sides cubed, which is going to be 3.375. Now we know that S is going to be the cube root of 3.375. If we take the cube root of that, we find that S is 1.5. So that means the sides of the cube are 1.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. Now if we're only trying to find the area of one side of it, we're going to do area is equal to length times width. Area is equal to 1.5 times 1.5. So area is equal to 2.25 feet squared. Now what happens if the number inside the radical is not a perfect square or not a perfect cube? Then you're going to get a decimal, which means you're going to have to estimate or round. So if you put into your calculator the square root of 35, go ahead, and you're going to get a decimal that starts out with 5.9. We only need to look at the decimal number and round it to a whole number. So 5.9 is going to round to 6. When we punch in the square root of 170 on the calculator, you do it now, you're going to come up with a long decimal, but we're going to round it to 13. That's going to be our estimate. We're going to find the square root of 44.8. It's 6.6, which rounds to 7. Now we're doing cube roots. So remember how to punch in your cube root. You're going to do the cube root of 62. It's going to be a 3.9 decimal, so we're going to round that one to 4. The cube root of 25 is going to be 2.9 with some other numbers behind it, so we're going to round it to 3. And the cube root of 129.6 is 5.0, which rounds to 5. And that's how you work with roots.